Hey everyone, I'm Father Jeff Loseke, and it's time to get ready for Sunday Mass. This weekend, when you come to church, we'll be celebrating the 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. And when we listen to the readings this week, we're going to hear all about what it means to be a disciple and the cost of that discipleship. Our journey begins with the prophet Jeremiah. It was difficult to be a prophet in the Old Testament days. When God called him to be a prophet, I think he thought that it would be pretty easy because he would have God's strength, he would have God's words. But what he found out is where this reading starts this weekend. You duped me, O Lord, and I let myself be duped. In other words, I think you tricked me, God. I thought this was going to be a piece of cake, and it's not. It was hard to be a prophet. Not only did he have to change his life, but he had to ask other people to change their lives as well. And they weren't always ready for that. So Jeremiah decides that it'll be easier to walk away, to do this no more, to not follow after God's word and the mission given him. But by the end of that reading, we hear him saying, Lord, when your words were in me, they burned. They had to come out. I couldn't sit and do nothing. Even though it was tough, I had to do what was right. I had to announce your word. Indeed, that's what St. Paul says to the Christians in the first century. In the second reading this weekend, we're going to hear from Paul's letter to the Romans, and he urges the Christians of that era to give their bodies, to offer their bodies as a living sacrifice to God. That's how we show our love and our worship. We give ourselves completely, totally, wholly to the work of God. And when we do that, we offer a sacrifice very much like Jesus offered the sacrifice for us. In fact, when you listen to the gospel this weekend, Jesus tells his disciples, if you want to be my disciple, if you want to follow after me, then you have to take up your cross. You have to take up your cross and come after me. Now, Jesus isn't telling us that we have to go find big wooden beams and instruments of torture and make our lives difficult. No. What Jesus is suggesting is that the crosses are already in our lives. Take them up. So when you come to Mass this weekend, I'd like you to think about what crosses are in your life. What difficulties do you carry? What worries and anxieties do you bear? How do you suffer for doing what is right and good? Because it's all around us. Jesus invites us to bring those things with us when we come to Mass. And I invite you to take those crosses and spiritually place them on the altar. So that when Jesus' cross, when his sacrifice is offered right here on this altar, your crosses will be offered with it. And we know that Jesus conquers the cross. He conquers sin and death, and he gives us the gift of the resurrection and new life. He does that for our crosses as well. He does that for our daily lives. So while we may come in with burdens and crosses, sufferings and difficulties, we go out with the grace and the strength to carry them. And that's how we live as Jesus' disciples. Just as St. Paul said to those first Christians, he says to us, offer your bodies as a spiritual sacrifice for God. And now we're ready for Sunday Mass. So think about your crosses, pray about them, bring them with you to church, and let Jesus transform them so that we truly might become his disciples and offer him a sacrifice that is fitting.